So there's no choosing in heaven because there's nothing to choose between. There's no good and there's no bad thoughts. Neither good thoughts or bad thoughts are real thoughts. That's what I should have written. Right? So whenever, by the way, it's not in italics, it's something that I wrote. When it's in italics, it's from the Course. Okay? Now it's from the Course. The good ones are but shadows of what lie beyond. The shadows make sight difficult. The bad ones are blocks to sight and make seeing impossible. You do not want either. Now, isn't that interesting? So we don't want even the good ones are shadows, and the bad ones block sight completely. Okay? So, for example, what's good? It's a matter of opinion, actually. One person may, Eric here could tell you, I think we mentioned this once before, what one person regards as art and what another person regards as art are not going to be the same thing. One's going to say, I love that, and the next one's going to say, that's trash. Right? So it's a matter of opinion. So anything that is of that level. But this only casts a shadow, whereas the other part is blocking outside completely. Any condemnation, any interpretation which says that's wrong, that's bad, etc. And that's not to say that people aren't going off course, etc. But do we need to amplify it and to publicize it and to make it even seem more real? That's the question. So, good and bad are both evaluated. So this is all, again, just something that I've written. They're both required judgments. What's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. Isn't that the saying, right? What's art to one is trash to another. Peace comes in the suspension of judgment. The complete suspension of judgment. So there's no judgment at all. We're just letting it be. You've heard me say many times before. Favorite line in the Course, a favorite line. Let him be what he is, seek not to make of love an enemy. Leave it alone. Leave the situation alone, because the more we get plugged into it, the more we get tied into it, the more we lose our own peace of mind. And what you don't want to do is be losing your peace of mind. The Course says, you may find the suspension of judgment in connection with thoughts particularly difficult. Now notice that that's from workbook lesson 4. So as I'm going, these are just early lessons, right? But you may find the suspension of judgment in connection with thoughts particularly difficult. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means stopping the judgment. We recognize that that's difficult to do, and watch it. Watch it if you start to say something to somebody else that is highly judgmental. Catch yourself and stop it. Catch yourself and stop it. The sooner you can catch yourself, the sooner you can actually stop it. And then also this is from workbook lesson 10, search your mind for all the thoughts that are available for you without selection or judgment. It's just, the early lessons are just about watching, looking at my thoughts, just seeing them, seeing the garbage that's coming up, seeing the worries that are coming up, and see if I can't make another choice. So this from A Course of Love. If I got, here we go. This is from A Course of Love, not A Course in Miracles, which I will occasionally make reference to. The Course of Love talks about what it calls wholeheartedness. It says wholeheartedness is but a full expression of your power. A full expression of your power is creation. What has been created cannot be uncreated. What has been created can, however, be transformed. Transformation occurs in time. Thus, transformation and miracles need to work hand in hand. Let me add that there are no miracles in heaven. Why are there no miracles in heaven? Exactly. All right. So they're not needed, right? So there's no forgiveness in heaven. Same reason, right? There's nothing to forgive, right? Here we need it. Here we need miracles. Miracles are for this world because miracles are the mechanisms by which this work gets done. Forgiveness we need in this world because forgiveness is the mechanism by which things change. If it's real forgiveness, once in a while there'll be forgiveness that's not real, as in I can forgive but I can't forget kind of thing. Well, then there may be still some holding on that's going on there. Okay, and let's go on. The heart has no ego. Love just is. Heaven and earth shall pass away means that they will not continue to exist as separate states. My word, which is the resurrection and the life, shall not pass away because life is eternal. You are the works of God, and his work is wholly lovable and wholly loving. This how a man must think of himself in his heart, because this is what he is. This is a complete change in mind that we're going through now. To see ourselves this way, wholly loving and wholly lovable.
I just want to say something. I forgot to get to the...
Try walking around in a mall and smiling at people. And just see what happens. Just see if they don't brighten up. And smile back. Right? Actually, I was in a men's room on the way here this morning, and there was a guy that was sort of doing stuff in the mirror, and I said, "You look good." And he just got this big smile on his face. Okay, you look good. All right, so little, right? Okay, this is lesson 15, which is coming up this week. My thoughts and images that I have made, it is because the thoughts you think appear as images that you do not recognize them as nothing. The thoughts you think, right? You think them, and so you think you see them. This is how your seeing was made. Underline the word seeing at that point, right? This is the function you have given your body's eyes. It is not seeing. It is image making. It takes the place of seeing, replacing vision with illusion. In other words, we create the world we see by our evaluations of it. And you can see anything depending upon where the mind is at. It's all a matter of choice. So how am I going to see whatever I choose to see? It's a matter of choice. You've got to have the mic if you're going to talk. Oh, okay. All right. It's all in the head. Quite right.
You can add to this from another lesson saying that the body's eyes do not see, they are simply image makers.
Right.
You know,
that's what it's saying.
Think about how profound that is.
Right. For a photographer.
Well, but for me as well, but for just the profound statement of that what we're seeing through the body's eyes are not what we think we're seeing. They're images cast out through projection.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's saying. So let's look at the Curriculum of Atonement. So the Curriculum of the Atonement is really the process by which the Course works. It's a process of cleaning house. It's a process by which we get rid of, so to speak, the things that we don't need, the thoughts that we'd really like to dump so that we can have peace of mind. So the Curriculum of the Atonement is the opposite of the curriculum you've established for yourself, but so is its outcome. If the outcome of yours has made you unhappy, and if you want a different one, a change in the curriculum is obviously necessary. The first change to be introduced is a change in direction. So we're going to start changing direction now, and what we're going to start doing is looking within rather than looking without. Because we look without, we define, we're going to look within and see what's going on there and see how we feel about that. So the Course says, this is, now I have done this more than one time here, and I will probably do it again, this particular passage, because it is so important that I really strongly suggest that every one of us memorize the part that's a little bit bolder at the bottom. Literally remember, be able to say this to yourself at any time, especially any time that you feel troubled. Okay? So, but let me read the whole thing. This is the only thing you need to do for vision, happiness, release from pain, complete escape from sin, all to be given you. Say only this, and then this is the difficult part, but mean it. You not only have to say this, but mean it with no reservation. For herein the power of salvation lies. And this is what you say to yourself, and I recommend, I'm going to put these on cards and hand them out to everybody at some point, and just as a, right, and keep handing them out. I am responsible for what I see, period. I'm totally responsible for what I see. There's nobody else that I can blame for what I'm seeing right now. I choose the feelings I experience. So if I'm choosing to be upset, if I am upset, I am choosing to be upset. I am the one who decided to be upset because of this situation. Right? I am choosing to be distraught. You're back to your choices, right? I am choosing to be angry. I am choosing to be annoyed. Whatever it is that I'm choosing, I'm the one who's this is my choice about the feeling. I don't have to feel this way. There's another way I could feel. I could be peaceful about what's going on instead of projective and angry and attacking about what's going on. And I decide upon the goal I would achieve. So whatever goals that we've got out there, we're the ones that set those goals. We decided that this is what I want to achieve. And the last sentence is the really heavy-duty big one. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for. And I receive as asked. Now, there's going to be plenty of times when you're going to say, I never asked for this. Right? But here it is. And seeing how here it is, I must have asked for it. Because now this is what my experience, I am now experiencing this. Whatever it is, an IRS tax audit. Oh my God. I never asked for this. But you got to deal with it, right? I mean, if that's what's there, that's what's there, then we got to deal with it, whatever it is. Maybe it's just an annoyance. I never asked for this flu. Whatever it is. Right? All right, let's go on.
John,
I just want to
can I add
emphasize
one
this
thing
because
to
it's
this?
so important. Yes, Brad.
It can't be overemphasized. Again, this first sentence, I am responsible for what I see. Who is the I?
Right.
You know, it's not the I as the body. The I as the mind is responsible for what it sees. And it's not responsible for what it's actually looking at. It's responsible for its interpretations of it.
Of course.
So are you looking lovingly on it, or are you judging it? Like, I'm not responsible for all of these bodies that I'm looking at.
No.
What I'm responsible for is how I'm perceiving. Like, am I judging you?
Right.
Or am I extending love to you? That's
Right.
what I'm responsible for.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's always that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go on. This is Ken, who Helen studied with, and I guess a few of the rest of you. This was my favorite picture of Ken. That was taken in the library at the Foundation for A Course in Miracles out in Temecula. We can't get to the truth unless we first look at the error. So the rest of our time this afternoon is going to be looking at error. The dynamics of the ego will be our lesson for a while. We must look first at this to see beyond it. Since you have made it real, we will undo this error quietly together and look beyond it together. So when it says together, it means we're doing it with the Holy Spirit, right? So I love this. This is Meister Eckhart, who's one of my favorite mystics and theologians. I love this. His quote on the left-hand side is, "Only the hand that erases can write the true thing." It's not what we're making up that gets us to the truth. It's what we're deleting that doesn't need to be there that's going to get us to the truth. We're getting rid of who we're removing. That's what these early lessons are about removing who you're not, becoming aware of who you're not so you can become more aware of who you are. So again, it's just a matter of cleaning house. And then another quote by Eckhart, "God is not found in the soul by adding anything, but in the process of subtraction." So we're just going to get rid of everything that's not who we are, right? We're getting rid of all the fluff. Is that what you said? Blocks. Yeah, blocks would be another way to put it. Blocks, but we're getting rid of the reverends and the doctors and the specialnesses of all sorts. We're getting rid of all that stuff, the masks that we put up in front of ourselves, right? I don't know whether you know Meister Eckhart or not, but he was a wonderful, he's probably the most popular. And just like Eckhart, he was condemned by the church. He was up before the Inquisition for 2 years before the Inquisition, before he died. He looked like he was destined to be burned at the stake, but he beat him. He died before they could burn him. He found his own, and it wasn't suicide, he just died. Right? Now, we all know our dear friend Carl Jung. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual conscious mind, the blacker and denser it is. So what we got to do is we got to look. We got to be willing to look. And again, the good times are willing to look, especially at a time when things aren't working in your life. Then you want to kind of look and you want to think, what's my part in this? If a relationship isn't working, don't go blaming it on the other. Look at what's my part in this. And is there anything I can change that will make the situation better? You may think it's the other person's responsibility to ask for forgiveness. It's your responsibility to ask for forgiveness. So the shadow refers to the unconscious aspects of one personality which the ego does not want to look at. It does not identify it itself. What we call the shadow, because we don't normally recognize it in ourselves. But it's easy to see it in other people, right? Reason will tell you that the only way to escape from misery is to recognize it and go the other way. Literally go the other way. I recognize, I see that this is misery. I see that my mind is in misery. And then I make a choice to go another direction. Totally, I don't have to go that way. Right? So we want to go with what we were looking at earlier, what we call right-mindedness. So you're probably all familiar, I'm sure I've said many times before, principle number 7 to the 50 Miracles principles. Miracles are everyone's right, but purification is first. That's the cleaning house. That's the purification. First I get to get the junk, the blocks, as you say, out of my own mind. So shadow work requires our honest recognition the cause of our misery is in ourselves, it's not in the world. And Jung again says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So we're going the other way. You do not bring, the Course says, and that may be on the next slide here. No, it's not, but we'll get back to it in a second. So you do not bring the light to the darkness. The reason we don't bring the light to the darkness is because we don't know what the light is. We don't know, but we do know what the darkness is. We do know what the darkness is because we live in that darkness. We wallow in the darkness. So that's why we need to bring this up into the light to look at, so it'll go away. The light will dispel it. Right? We don't bring it this way, we bring it this way, from the bottom up. Eric, mic on this side? Can you pass it back to Eric?
I just
In a
heard
minute.
Deepak Chopra said something like, the only time there's no shadow is when you're in the darkness.
Right. Does somebody want to say something over this way? Yeah. This is, oh, you want to take a picture of the slide? Okay, you can, got that done? Okay, and let's go on. So, the ego living in darkness knows more about illusion than truth. It knows more about darkness than light. I just got through saying all that. So Jesus is asking to be honest, to be willing to bring the darkness to the light. Jesus holds the greater light for us. We are literally blinded by the world, thinking the world is real. Power plays and politics are blinding. You want to get caught in the world? Easy to do it. You want to get caught up in thinking that that's reality? It's easy to do it. It's not reality. So, to understand the shadow, it's helpful to have some understanding of Jung's idea of the persona, the facade, the mask that we wear, what the Course repeatedly refers to as the ego. Shadow works means removing the mask. You know, there are lots of ways of doing this, but just kind of notice in yourself, things like exaggerations, elaborations, painting unpleasant pictures of other people, of the world itself, learning to keep one's mouth shut, or better yet, learning how to find the love rather than to find out what it is that's wrong. And literally everybody is crying out for love. So seeing how everybody's crying out for love, what better thing can we do than to give it to them, right? Because it's there. And I love Ram Dass saying, in most of our human relationships, we spend much of our time reassuring one another that the costume of our identity is on straight. Right? That's a part of the shadow. Yes, Ron.
It's funny.
Is that on?
I was just thinking about this like a week ago. I was on Instagram, and sometime on my Facebook feed, I see these young people starting to create this like fake identification for themselves. Like they'll be doing editorials where they're putting makeup on, and they're just creating another image. And it occurred to me that they are twice removed from reality.
Because it's interesting that we call it makeup. We're literally making up something, right? We're creating something that's not there. So this is from the Course. The little problems that you keep and hide become your secret sins, because you did not choose to let them be removed for you. And so they gather dust and grow until they cover everything that you perceive. Not one right do you believe you have, and bitterness with vengeance justified and mercy lost condemns you as unworthy of forgiveness. This is a heavy passage from the Course, right? The unforgiving have no mercy to bestow upon another. That's why your sole responsibility must be to take forgiveness for yourself. And one of the ways that we take the forgiveness for ourselves is by offering it, by forgiving it. That's the way you also receive it. And that is true for all things, all people, all circumstances. It doesn't matter what it is. Again, leave the world alone. Shanti, if you're going to talk, you got to have the mic. You still have to have the mic, hon. It's on. It's on.
Oh, it is on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Did you really? There's a little shadow in there. You swear. Okay. I believe it. I believe you. Okay, let's go on.
What I say about this, if I can forgive someone else for being an idiot, I could forgive myself for being an idiot too.
Right, okay, that's good. Right. Give her back the mic.
There's nothing to forgive.
It's on.
There's nothing. There's nothing to forgive if you didn't judge in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't have forgiveness unless there's condemnation first. Or judgment, the same idea. Yeah, yes, it's a heavy, and there's no doubt about it, right? So if I'm making it, so there's just no judgment at all. So we're letting things be what they are, once again. Right? So seeing how we just had Christmas, I'm sure that some of you probably watched one version or another of the Christmas Carol on television. And this was a good one. So think about what this is about. This is Ebenezer Scrooge, who we all know is all ego-driven and selfish, etc. Sort of the total example of it. But also just like with the Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, he has a dream. They're all dreams. They're all these interesting. They're all dreams. All these stories. They're not real. But then so are the life stories. They're not real either. So Scrooge is actually shown, and they say in the play or the film or the music, he's shown shadows of the past and shadows of the present and shadows of a maybe future, right? And as these are only shadows and not realities, he is then given the opportunity of changing his mind. He wakes up. At first, there's this thought that what has been going on is real, because it's very real within the context of the dream. But now he sees, no, that was just a dream. And it's possible to fix everything. It's possible to change it all. Right? He's given the opportunity of changing his mind. And he does. And what happens, of course, you all know because you've seen it a dozen times, is that he's giddy and gay and happy and everything is blissful because he's been saved himself. He had the chance to save. It's interesting how sometimes we get to the bottom of the pit, and at the bottom of the pit, we realize that there's another way out of this, that we can be saved. And we can save ourselves by just making a simple decision not to go any deeper into the pit or into the darkness, going back toward the light. This is all like a shadow work is the path of the warrior of the heart, path of the heart warrior. And so that it takes courage to look at the shadow. You've got to be. You're looking at the stuff that you've denied. You're looking at the stuff that's been repressed. By honestly doing it, by honestly looking at the denial and the repression, you can begin to find freedom, but you got to be willing to. You can't ignore it. Okay, we got to pass it back. No, don't be sorry. There's no shadow there.
There's something that kills me about that story about Scrooge's, and it's in Dickens in another place too, when he talks about Fagin in that other story. Like one of the biggest villains.
Right.
He doesn't leave it at that. He shows you why. He shows you the shadow of the past where he was wounded. And it makes him so dimensional. It gives the story a whole nother, it brings our heart into the story. And it just blows my mind. Because that's where I really cry. And I always think that's really the only story that ever needed to be written.
Right. But it's such a great story about change.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's only he has to go back and to see what caused the pain.
It seems like sometimes, like to me, Dickens, when I was reading that stuff, it seemed like he was writing from God's point of view because he loved everybody. He loved the villains. He loved. He just brought kindness and understanding to everybody.
Right. Which I think is why it had such a powerful effect upon mankind's consciousness, and does to this day because we see the truth in it.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
Might as well get up. So
Yeah, that's a
make
good
it easy.
idea.
You know, the past, and listen to the course, they talk about the past, how it has no reality of its own. And, you know, some of the things where most of my pain lies is from the damage I've created from my past. And, you know, I've gone through many legal matters in the past, you know. I've constantly been doing this reciprocal process since I'm like 29 years old, and I have an attic full of paperwork that can show it. And I guess what I wanted to say was 2 years ago when I started to come here and to see you, and I've read your books, I had a lot of external questions about my pain. And then when I started to practice the course, I found that all those papers in the attic that I had held on to with such an egoic thrive, it made me who I was. And that's why there was so much pain. And I guess what I'm saying is when the course told me that the past has no reality, I was able to let go of all of it.
Oh, wonderful.
And the forgiveness started to come in. And then when I realized I could forgive, I didn't have to ask you those questions. You know?
Yeah.
It just came to me. I wanted to share
Yeah.
that.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing that. Yeah, it's going to, yeah. Leslie said it's time for a bonfire. Yeah, it would be time for a bonfire for all that stuff that's in the past, right? And that's a good way to do it. Right? But again, it says it's the path of the warrior, the heart. So you got the courage to do it. Right.
The only record you should keep about yourself is that you were as holy and as pure as your father.
You want to say it? You want to say it again?
The only record that you should keep is the record that your father holds for you, is that your father's will is that you are as holy and as pure as God himself.
Right.
That's the only record you should put in your attic.
And what the Course talks about, like true forgiveness, and what that is that nothing happened. It was all these stories, whether it's Scrooge or Alice in Wonderland or any of them, nothing happened. This is true for all of us. You never left home. There was no dream. There was no story. This is a major difference in the Course in Miracles and traditional Christianity, because there's no suffering from the sin of the past, because the Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, whatever, doesn't see it that way. It just sees that you are the holy child of God. You've always been a holy child of God. And just for a moment, you fell asleep and you wandered into this bad dream. And in the bad dream, you thought that you were very far removed from heaven. But you can't be very far removed from heaven because heaven is here. And heaven is now. And the Course literally says it's no place else. Which means this whole world is a dream. Which means when you start seeing all the problems that there are in the world, just keep in mind that that's a part of the dream. That we're all dreaming collectively together. It's really going to be... Don't feel bad for people who left here. You know, there's really a chance to wake up. I think it's sort of interesting that we think that the worst thing that we can do to someone, like somebody who's committed a major crime, is that we will kill them. Well, they just got out of here. You know, they just had an opportunity to leave this very bad dream that was going on. So okay, thought I saw a hand.
So one of the things that really impressed upon me today is being wholly lovable and wholly loving. So I think if that is actually the case, which I think is irrefutable, then we really don't have that much to do, because it also means that we're wholly accepted.
That's right.
So the work is really done.
That's
It's
right.
just kind of remembering
That's right.
where we need to be. So that was a really nice kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a very good thought. It, in fact, there's a line in the Course where it says the world was over long ago. So if the world was over long ago, that really does mean that it's a dream. Right. But we're awakening from this bad dream. We're awakening from the illusion. And let's recognize that there's very few enlightened folks out there, and we're all living in some bad dreams are going on. A lot of it. You got a poem?
Yeah.
I thought you did. All right. Take the mic.
I think this is one of my best.
Okay. Well.
I lost my closest friend in December, who I've known for 26 years. And I was really surprised. I was surprised at my reaction. You know, I went back from grief, back and forth, and this is where I came to. I named the poem Juicy. Okay. In a frequency past life and death, we roll around as spirits love. I breathe you now in tunes eternal, home where flesh is not needed. We are forever of each other, in flow above beliefs of limit.
Nice thing to write about someone who's gone. Right.
I don't feel that he went
But
anywhere.
it's gone. Right. So let's go a little further. So doing shadow work means being willing to look at the shadow without defensiveness. That's another place to be really aware of a shadow. It's if you're defensive. Right? If you start to defend yourself about anything, really that's a really good time to stop. And why am I defending myself? Why do I think that a defense is necessary? Now, it may be that you're simply stating the truth, but still also that's like it's the beginning of an argument in a certain sense to introduce the defense. Right? Shadows are teachers on our way home. So let's look at the shadow as a teacher. It's a tough teacher, but it's a good teacher if it really helps to wake me up, right? Not being to look at the shadow, part of the personalities have a way of appearing in selfish decision-making, choosing to be jealous, overeating, spending money beyond one's means, all these ways that you can think of. It often leads us into distressing situations, divorce, perhaps, or bankruptcy. It's not to say that those things can't and shouldn't happen. Gaining weight, getting into debt, health issues, situations it would be best to avoid if we could. And let's go on. So as projections make perceptions, it's easier to see the shadow in others and ourselves. We said that earlier. We are judgmental without recognizing that judgment is a part of our shadow. Just watch the judgment. That's a part of that's your shadow that's coming up in the judgment. We have to be really, really conscious of this. Okay? So this is challenging work, but it's really good work. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. Any attack thoughts. There's no point in lamenting the world. There's no point in trying to change the world. It's incapable of change because it's merely an effect. That's actually a quote from the Course, which I forgot to note where it came from. What has to be changed is the mind and only the mind. Okay, let's look at the two worlds for a moment. You've been told to bring the darkness to the light and guilt to holiness. And you've also been told that error must be corrected at its source. Therefore, it is the tiny part of yourself, the little thought that seems split off and separate, the Holy Spirit needs. That little resistant point, the dust, bring that to the light. The rest is fully in God's keeping and needs no guidance. Yet this wild and delusional thought needs help because it is delusional. It thinks it is the Son of God, whole and omnipotent, sole ruler of the kingdom, it's set apart to tyrannize by madness its obedience and slavery. This is the little part you think you stole from heaven. Give it back to heaven. Heaven has not lost it, but you have lost sight of heaven. Now we're talking about the ego here, right? That's the little part you think you stole from heaven. That I'm gonna take this to myself. I'm gonna have a world of my own. I'm gonna create a kingdom of my own. And I know I've told this story, but let me repeat it because it's appropriate. I went to see Ken up at Roscoe many years ago. This would have been in the early, I think it was about 93, early 90s. And we went into the dining room and sat down at the table to chat a little bit. And Ken looked at me, and the first thing he said was, "How's your kingdom?" I blew it. I really blew it. I said, "Fine, how's yours?" And he said, "I don't have a kingdom." And then and it was interesting, driving home in the car, I got it. It's not about the little kingdom. We all create these little kingdoms. There's only one kingdom. That's God's kingdom. And that should have been, my answer should have been, you mean God's kingdom? Or my little kingdom? Too late. But I'm not going to feel guilty about that. Huh? 93? I would have been 50. Now you know how old I am. Okay. No, it's true. It doesn't. It truly does not matter. So let's go on to the next slide. All right. Healing occurs. Now, we talked about this when we talked about the psychotherapy pamphlet some months ago. Healing occurs as the patient begins to hear the dirge he sings. You know what a dirge is, right? The da, heavy funeral march kind of stuff, right? Okay. Healing occurs when we begin to hear the dirge he sings and question its validity. Now it says the patient here because the psychotherapy pamphlet was written for everybody, but it's specifically for psychotherapists, right? Until he hears it, that is, until he hears the dirge. And by the way, you may notice with your friends, you don't have to judge them, but you may notice that different people sing different kind of dirges, right? And they got a song they sing. And it's a sad song. It's a very sad song that, without making judgments about them, it seems like they can't let go of the song. And they sing. A guy wrote an article for Miracles Magazine once about his deceased aunt, whose favorite phrase was, "Ain't it awful?" That was the title of the article, "Ain't it awful?" Ain't it awful about whatever is going on? And you can really, the news is a good place to get caught up in, ain't it awful, right? But it's just what's going on. And it will change. To hear it is the first step in recovery. So the first step is to see that I'm singing a dirge. This is my song I sing. It's not a happy song. It's not a pleasant song at all. And if I keep singing it, then the more I sing it, the more I reinforce it, the more I believe it, that it's true. Because I'm reinforcing it in my own mind. I'm saying that it's true. And it's not true. It's not at all. Period.
As you teach, so shall you learn.
Exactly. So to hear it is the first step in recovery. To question it must then become his choice. So we question the dirge that we sing. Okay. And this is also from Psychotherapy Pamphlet. These fleeting awarenesses represent the many opportunities given us to literally change our tune. So instead of singing a dirge, we're going to sing a happy song, right? The sound of healing can be heard instead, but first the willingness to question the truth of the song of condemnation must arise. Okay? First, the willingness. I think one of the things we're going to do next time is talk about willingness a lot, because that's something that needs to be looked at more closely. The shadow condemns. The shadow says something is wrong. So the memory of God dawns only in a mind that chooses to remember, and thus has relinquished the insane desire to control reality. And then let's talk a little bit about this controlling of realities. Our job is not to control reality. Rather, our job is to cooperate with reality in terms of what reality really is. And the reality that there really is that there's only one kingdom, that's God's kingdom. And we want to help in healing the world by doing what's necessary to bring God's kingdom into being. And it starts with me. That's one of the things that you said that you're reading Jordan Peterson, that he talks about some in his book about, it starts, clean your own room, make your own bed, fix up your own relationships with whatever's going on in your life. And then that will help to improve the world right there, simply because actually other people will see that you live a life that's in order. And the fact that you live a life that's in order is going to help to bring the world into order. You can't be living in chaos and expect to fix the world or to change the world in any way. We're not even talking about fixing the world. We're just talking about fixing a relationship. That's a good place to start. Healing a relationship that seems to be kind of chaotic. And there's a line in the Course which says, whoever is saner at the time. That's an interesting line. Whoever is saner at the time should be the one that does that. Because if you're both insane, let's say you've got a couple, and you're arguing back and forth, whoever is saner at the time should introduce sanity into the relationship. And it's just by demonstrating love, just by demonstrating your willingness, for example, to listen to criticism that may be coming your way without getting defensive about it. Because the moment you get defensive about it, then you're saying that there's something real there. That there really is a problem, when there isn't any problem. Just a few more. So we're almost out of time. But in the balance of our time, let's just talk about, there is an inner guide. This is so important in terms of understanding the Course. You can't think that there's no help. The guide, the Holy Spirit is the guide. And it's interesting that this concept of an inner guide exists in all esoteric and mystical philosophies. It's not new. There's nothing new in the Course in Miracles in that sense. In Zoroastrian, of ancient Persia, they still exist. There's a few of them. Called this the Spintomainu. Socrates, Plato, the early Greeks called it the inner genius. There's an inner genius in you. Thoreau also called it the inner genius. In Judaism, it's called Shehina, which reflects the feminine, the nurturing aspect of God. Robert Perry, who we should mention, is going to be here on May 22nd at the Center for Remembering and Sharing. We'll talk about that later. Likes to refer to it, uses the phrase, the perfect parent, to describe the Holy Spirit. And let's just do one more. So before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accordance with mine. If you're sure that it is, there will be no fear. That's a simple test. It's a very. I used to do this in terms with kin. I would think, you know, WWJD, what would Jesus do? I used to do WWKD. What would kin do? And I always knew the answer to that. And I knew if there was something that I was about to do and I was going to ask his advice, I would know what the advice would be. And probably most of the time that would be, don't go that way. We're near the end of our time. We're going to have another little something from the two of you. Okay? Thank you all for being here today. I think in February I want to, as I said, talk more about will and willingness, and that's the direction we're going to go in. I don't have an exact title yet. If you want to join us for dinner at Saigon Market, please do. Just 2 blocks down and 1 block left. And see you then.